Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Arc Pikes Peak Region's podcast, where we will be providing resources to people with varying abilities and their families, discussing topics and informing people about disability issues. So we are so excited to have you, and to start off this series, we are so excited to have a very special guest, our fearless leader with a true heart for advocacy, our executive director, Will Romero. Thank you so much for taking some time to come and talk to me. Yeah, we're super excited to have you here. So I kind of just wanted to start off by giving people some information about who we actually are. You know, when a lot of people are starting this process, they don't really know where to turn to, like, where do I get my resources, where to go? So say someone pops on Google, they're looking for disability resources in the Pikes Peak region, and they see the Arc Pikes Peak region. What will they find? And is it the thrift store?
Well, I think, first of all, that's a great question to ask, because there is a lot of confusion in our community with who the ARC really is. The ARC Pikes Peak Region is part of the largest civil rights organization in the United States. There are approximately 700 chapters that are spread throughout the United States, doing a variety of work in the areas of serving individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Yeah.
I often say that when you've visited one ARC or you worked with one ARC, you have worked with one ARC.
Right.
We all are very different across the board when it comes to the services that we provide throughout the United States, and more often or more likely in the eastern side of the country and our western side of the country, we find that our ARC chapters are direct service providers, which means they are working really one-to-one or directly with an individual with IDD, providing healthcare type services to that individual. So there are, again, those differences when it comes to the ARC and what they actually do. And more often than not, the services that they provide are the services that were the need of that community when the ARCs were established.
Right.
Most ARCs were established in 1955, was really the foundation behind the ARC and the movement of being advocates for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Right.
So again, if you go to one ARC, it's not always going to be the same with what we do. And then in the state of Colorado, the ARCs are considered advocacy-only chapters,
Okay.
which means that our main focus is really around the advocacy piece at the local, state, and national levels, making sure that individuals with IDD have a voice. And when I say that, a voice in public policy that impacts their daily living. We take it for granted that life is just easy going and there's not any challenges and people don't make rules for us that we need to follow. But when it comes to the IDD community, a lot of their lives and the decisions that they make are made in Washington, D.C. by our elected officials that put these rules and so forth in order. Yeah. So again, there's a little bit of difference with each of the ARCs across the United States, as I've said a few times. But the one thing that does bring all of the ARCs together is the advocacy piece. So when you go to New York, when you go to Florida, Washington State, California, we are all working on the public policy piece to make sure, again, that individuals with IDD have that voice at the highest level of public policy.
Right. And I think that's really cool. That's one of my favorite parts about the ARC is how we are all different, right? Because it's not cookie cutter. Like disability it's not the same for everyone. Everyone has their own journey. So I think it's really cool how individual chapters kind of are formed based on what is needed there, you know, because a bunch of little different puzzle pieces come together and we're all working for it.
Yeah, and again, every community has a different need,
Right.
the different challenges, funds that are available, opportunities that are available, so forth for the IDD community. That is the case, and that is the good thing about the ARC is that through all of our efforts, we seem to have experts across the United States in different areas. So if one chapter doesn't have the answer, we can make a phone call, and there's probably another chapter somewhere out there that is experienced in the issues that take place. Here in the Pikes Peak region, we offer 4 different areas when it comes to services that we provide. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, advocacy is a big part of the services that we provide. So advocacy comes in a variety of different areas for us here at the Arc Pikes Peak region. First and foremost, as I mentioned, we're a civil rights organization, so our advocacy is at the state and is at the national levels, again, dealing with public policy. In the local arenas, we provide advocacy in the community. Often we find individuals who are struggling with making rent. They get evicted or having issues with their landlord, utilities, need for household goods, need for clothing, these different social needs that are needed, or hierarchy of needs, those areas. So we do see individuals that are coming in needing that type of advocacy. But more often than not, again, in our service area, which consists of El Paso, Park, and Teller counties, there are approximately 17,000 students on an IEP or a 504 plan, which means that there are a lot of issues taking place in our public school settings. And far too often, when a parent and their child is in a school setting and they're attending an IEP meeting, things don't always seem to go well. There's a lot of issues that pop up, a lot of needs that the parents are asking for, things that the schools will say we can or we cannot do. And it leaves our parents in a bind because they're not familiar with what is called free and appropriate education and what's required of a school to provide our students. So they're often told what will take place, and they're not allowed, or I shouldn't say allowed, but they're not given the opportunity to ask for additional services. And that's where the ARC comes in, and we work with our parents to attend those IEP meetings, to be that voice or that support that they need, to help them to ask questions that need to be asked, and to give, again, more than anything, that support piece. If you are not familiar with the IEP process, usually there's 12 to 15 professionals that sit in around the table and they discuss your child's needs. And it's usually one parent sitting there by themselves.
That's so intimidating.
Being overwhelmed. Exactly. And it would be in any setting that you're at when that's taking place. So we're fortunate that we are one of very few, if there are other agencies, and right now I'm not aware of any, that actually go to the school IEP meeting with the parent to be that voice. Other organizations will try to educate the parent on what they should ask and then send them out there. So we give a little bit more hands-on support, encouragement, so forth. So again, a big piece of educational advocacy.
And I think it's cool, from my understanding, is that our advocates really try to empower these parents to become their own advocates at the end of the day. Like, of course, we go in and we support them and give them resources they need. But I just think it's so cool how we're trying to, really empower the parents to have the tools and the skills and the knowledge to go in and be their own advocate for their child, So I think that's just really awesome.
And it is an important part, is that piece, to be the advocate, because nobody knows their child better than the parent. When, health-wise, developmental-wise, likes, dislikes, all of those things. As a parent, you know your child better than anybody. So what we do try to do with that program is we try to encourage our parent to truly believe that they are the primary advocate and the primary educator of their child. Not so much where we've become kind of complacent and thinking once our children have reached school age that it is now the responsibility of the schools or whatever the schools say is the gospel.
Right.
That's not the case, and especially with the IDD community. So as important it is for the typically developing student to have that parent being the primary educator, it is even more important that our parents are really being that voice and that advocate for their child early in the developmental stages, so that they do have a better opportunity to be successful in school and in life.
Yeah. And then just from my perspective, if parents have those skills and have that ability to advocate for their child, then as their child's growing, they can equip their child with a disability to have those skills themselves. So that kind of trickles into them growing up and them being able to, hopefully live the most independent lives that they can. So I think it's a beautiful waterfall effect. Yeah,
and again, it's just important in our community that parents are confident in their abilities and their voice, which then leads to their own child to have the belief in the opportunity that they too have a voice and that they can make a difference in the decisions of where their careers or their paths are leading to within the educational system itself.
Right. Yeah, that's so awesome. And then, so we have our advocacy, we have our public policy piece. Can you just tell me a little about some of the social side of things that we do?
Yeah, sure can. I'm going to go back just a little bit if we can, because I think when we look at advocacy, another important piece of the advocacy work that we do here at the Arc Pikes Peak region is criminal justice advocacy. Far too many of our individuals are finding themselves mixed up in the criminal justice system because of the lack of supports that are available for our individuals in the community. Going back to, again, being a voice, so forth. So many of our adult individuals with IDD really didn't learn that they had a voice until they entered into the adult system. And the system all of a sudden now starts telling them, you have to make these decisions. Either you're going to be successful or you're not going to be successful, just placed on your shoulders. When for 18 years, you had a team of support there for you until you graduated, and then they're all gone. 85% unemployment rate. So as an individual with IDD, if you're not going to work, where do you go? More often than not, it's in an inappropriate day program, which means that it is not suitable for that individual when their skill sets are a lot higher. Or unfortunately, they end up on the couch playing video games or just laying on the couch. And then last but not least, if it's not the first two, they end up in the criminal justice system. And our jails have really became the new institutions for the IDD community. Once they're there, a snowball effect of crimes end up, or charges end up getting picked up, so forth. So it's important that we have representatives there in the courts educating the public defenders, our district attorneys, judges on disabilities, and understanding whether or not this individual is competent to stand trial. So that's a big piece of the ARC and that advocacy work. Sadly, we save our community approximately $3 million a year, keeping individuals with varying abilities out of jail who don't belong in jail. So again, that shows the importance of the ARC and the advocacy work that we do. You talk about social opportunities, and social opportunities are, I think, if anything, the fun part about the work that we do. Sadly, it's fun because we get to bring out enjoyment. We get to provide opportunities for people to be in the community where there is very few opportunities itself. So it's exciting that way, but it really is sad in the fact that Isolation is the number one killer of individuals with IDD for a variety of reasons. Again, if the community isn't open to you to be part of that community,
Right.
you stay inside. As a parent with a child with a disability and all of the struggles that it takes to get out the door, to be part of that community, are there the resources and the venues
Right.
appropriate for my child, and can they or can they not attend? If they do attend, do they get to stay the whole time?
Right. Am I going to get kicked out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the isolation issues are huge. So that is really the important piece behind the social opportunities.
Right.
For the ARC, we throw some great social opportunities starting out, and this has been going on for 20 plus years, but the ARC throws regular dances for the community. Unfortunately, COVID has added a challenge at finding a proper venue for us, because
Right.
we can't sell quite easily 600 tickets for people to attend an ARC dance.
Oh, yeah.
And
People are eager.
Yeah, and I tell them there ain't no party like an Arc Pikes Peak party.
I
People
can
love
attest.
it.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And they love it and they need it. And again, if you think about it, when you go out into your community or you go out in the town on a Friday or a Saturday evening, how often do you see our population being part of that community itself? Slim to none,
Yeah.
if there is any.
Right.
We have one young man, his name is Mitch Routon. He is somebody that really is vested in the community. He's somebody that you'll see on the weekend at a local lounge and enjoying
Right.
and doing things like that.
Yeah.
And a big part of Mitch's success is that he had parents that were that advocate.
Yep.
They were the parents that knew Mitch's strengths and his weaknesses.
Right.
They brought him out in the community, even though they were different than others. They made Mitch a really big part of their lives, and getting out and not confining themselves to isolation.
Right.
Through those efforts, Mitch became assistant coach for Manitou High School football team. He was a board member for the Arc Pikes Peak Region,
Right.
became the vice president,
Yeah.
moved on to the Arc of Colorado and became the president eventually,
Yeah.
and is now a member of the Arc US Board of Directors. So confidence building, parent encouragement,
Yeah.
parent being that primary educator, so forth, has brought out Mitch to be a social person. But that's a very small percentage of that
Right.
population that gets those
Right.
opportunities. So we're trying to be creative. And then in the family end of things, we have a really cool program. It's called Cool Cats. And that program really focuses on family respite opportunities.
Yeah.
With family respite opportunities, that again is that big challenges for our families to get out and enjoy the community. Is one, is it really accessible to me as a parent?
Right. Quick interruption.
Sure.
Just for people who do not know, can you explain what respite is?
Sure.
Just if I have no idea what that means, and I'm
Yeah.
coming to learn.
The layman's, description of respite is really a break.
There you
Taking a
go.
break. Getting an opportunity, which we would like to see more of, is an opportunity our caregivers and parents to take a break from the day-to-day challenges that they have for their mental health,
Got it.
for their physical health, for the opportunity just to breathe.
Yeah.
Again, because of isolation, many of our caregivers or parents, again, find joy in traveling to Walmart
Yeah.
when there's just that 5-minute break of peace.
True alone time.
True alone time.
Right,
Yeah.
especially if the parent is the caregiver, right? Because that happens a lot of times. Most of the time, I feel like it's the parents who are giving the care. So it's that extra, it's a lot all at once.
It is. And, unfortunately, it's self-inflicted. Okay? And the reason why it becomes self-inflicted is, again, the lack of being accepted in your community.
Right. You feel so alone, like nobody could possibly understand what I'm going through.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you walk in the room, we mentioned it before, when you're welcomed and when you're not welcome. So it's that feeling. It's the feeling of any parent, whether typically developing or non-typically developing student. It's hard to trust a stranger with your child, right?
Yeah.
And we just don't
Right.
want to just say anybody could come to our door and take care of our child. Now, I wouldn't do that with mine.
Right.
Typically developing student, not a lot of needs, but reverse that when your child has a lot of medical needs,
Yep.
when they may be fed by a tube, who may experience seizures on a regular basis. How confident are you to leave that environment knowing that your child could have an issue when you're gone?
Yeah.
And do you trust that individual that you have left your child to provide that medical care that's needed for them? And most of our parents don't.
Right.
And because of that, they will choose themselves. And this is the piece that I say, get self-inflicted,
Yeah.
is because they will choose themselves not to go out, not to be the part of the community, sadly, not to put what they consider their burden on somebody else's shoulders to do that. And nobody can take care of my child the way that I take care of my child.
Yeah.
So that respite break is really important for our families.
Right.
And without that, our families will they themselves and parents, caregivers, will find themselves in the world of disability because they haven't took that break. They haven't given their bodies the break. They haven't given themselves the mental health break. So, we have talked in the past of where you start feeling these aches and pains at I said 55.
Yeah.
But, our caregivers will start feeling those things if they've had a child at a young age in their 30s,
Right.
in their 40s, and by the time they're 50, the body is broken up. So we have to find opportunities to give our families the breaks.
Yep.
That is where those social opportunities are so important, individually and as families. Before those families who don't trust others, they can take that break with other families that are in that same situation or similar situations.
Yeah.
They can make friends and they can make natural supports.
Yep.
Social opportunities and respite is important too, because the ARC staff is that. We're a staff, right? And at any time, our staff members could be gone and no longer part of that family's lives. So it's important for them to be able to develop that network of support through these respite opportunities, because it's not always going to be the case that an ARC representative can be there. Remember, again, at the beginning of this, I said there's 17,000 kids on IEPs, and we are staff of 15.
Right.
So there's no way that we would be able to do it ourselves. That's why the parent is the primary educator.
Right.
That's why the parent caregiver needs to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
That's why individuals with ID need to learn to have a voice earlier on in their diagnosis, not when they're adults. And then when we have our social opportunities, we can celebrate life, not so much that I have to go back to this in an hour.
That's cool. So we're kind of the liaison to empowering people to be their own advocates and have their own supports.
Yeah, I like to say that we are the facilitator of bringing people together.
Yeah.
Because that is really our efforts here, is to create that. Even our education, we talked about advocacy, we talk about social opportunities, but another important part of the Arc Pikes Peak region is education.
Yep.
And educating our parents on waivers, educating parents on guardianship, educating parents on future planning and what to look for, educating our parents on the importance of taking those breaks, educating our parents and recognizing the signs when you need that break or when your child needs the break from you, because it's not always you need to get away from them. So it's a big part of that. So around that education, there's a variety of opportunities at our organization for a parent to come in and learn to be proactive. So again, as we're facilitating bringing people together, we don't want to always bring people together because they're in crisis. Right?
Yeah.
We want to bring them together because there is support. because
Right.
there are these opportunities, there are these things. And unfortunately, that in years past has always been the case, is they would call the ARC when there was a crisis.
Yep.
The crisis would get addressed. So I say we put a Band-Aid on it until the Band-Aid fell off and
you're in
the crisis was again.
Right.
And there was really nothing for our families outside of that. And through our campus, which we have created at 10 and 12 North Meade Avenue, individuals could come over here and see what we got going on to better their situations, but again, to take advantage of the opportunities that we have.
Right.
Educating parents, the School and Life program. I won't go deep into that.
We'll
because
touch on it later.
Yeah, that'll be the next podcast
Yeah.
for somebody to come in and talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Cool Cats.
Yep.
That has a variety of things for our children and parents to be part of that community, build that network of support, develop confidence in what they're doing, and looking at new ways to take on those challenges.
Right.
And then, last but not least that I should mention is that we are guardians for 80 or up to 86 individuals. We're basically professional parents for individuals with IDD who do not have loved ones or appropriate persons in their lives to help them make qualified decisions. We do that at no cost to our community.
Right.
Without the ARC, you would have 70 individuals floating around without that additional support. Not only that being important, but the cost to have a guardian, approximately $12,000 a year.
Wow.
So imagine what we put into that program financially to serve those 76 individuals.
Right.
And it's very key that we have this support in place, because again, without the ARC's guardianship program, there's nobody there to take care of those individuals. And you probably wonder, how do you do all of that stuff at no cost?
I don't know. How do you?
Well, that's the beauty of people getting confused with who we are.
Oh, yeah. Break down that confusion for our viewers.
More often than not, when I ask the question, I do a lot of presentations around the ARC and what we're doing.
Yep.
I'll ask the audience if they're familiar with the ARC, and I'll have around 10, depending on the size of the group, of people who will raise their hand. So I'll pick on somebody out there. And 99.9% of the time, the people will say, you're a thrift store.
I love your clothes.
We love thrift shopping. You guys, great sales on Saturday, all of those types of things. But the ARC Thrift Store really is our funding source. And the ARC Thrift Store allows us to do the work that we do at no cost to our community. So our guardianship program, our advocacy, our social events, those things like that are usually done at no cost. If there's a fee, it's a very minimal fee to pay. And that's kind of getting skin in the game, because some of these events are very popular.
Yep.
And if you sign up and you don't show up, you're taking that opportunity away from somebody else who could benefit from that opportunity there. The ARC thrift stores were created around supporting the ARC chapters so that we could focus in doing all of those things that we talked about, not focusing on fundraising.
Right.
Because car washes, bake sales, selling jewelry, knitting, those kind of things, they don't make much money, but they take a lot of energy.
Especially in like the nonprofit world with a small staff and minimal resources. It's like, we are so lucky to have that in place so we can be spending our time on our people.
Mission.
Yeah.
And doing what we're supposed to do, not doing fundraising, other things in those areas. And then I'm very honored to say that the ARC Thrift Store is one of the largest, if not the largest, employer of individuals with IDD in the state of Colorado. We employ approximately 350 people with varying abilities across the state of Colorado, and approximately 34 stores that are spread around the Front Range. Just happened to open one up in Grand Junction about a year ago.
Yeah.
So we're getting more of the word out there.
Yeah.
It's a great thrift store. We win a lot of awards. We do those things. But we are so much more than a thrift store.
Right.
We are the ARC chapter. We do a lot of work in our community. And again, I think without our work and our efforts in our community, you would see some very disappointed individuals with IDD really out there sinking and not swimming.
Right.
And our goal is to bring our people to the top of the water to help them become successful again in that
Right.
program that we coined, Succeeding in School and in Life.
Right. Well, awesome. Will, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me.
Yeah.
And then to close off, could you just give our viewers a little message about why inclusion is important for people with varying abilities?
Yeah, I think one, again, if you put yourselves into their shoes, and you think about what is going on in our community. You know, we are the Olympic City.
Yeah.
We got some great venues out there in our community. We got some great things happening. But as we mentioned again, when it comes to isolation and it comes to that feeling of I'm not wanted, I'm looked at different, all of those things, it is a challenge for our community to really want to be part of it when you're the odd one out. So a big part of what we're trying to do is to change that culture. Right?
Yeah.
So that when you see individuals with varying abilities working, playing, living, we're not thinking, oh, look how special that is. But we say, this is normal.
Right.
This is what a community looks like. This is what inclusion looks like. This is what, again, access to our community is. Not just that you could get into the building because
Right.
there's a ramp,
Right.
but you can actually participate, being included.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and having this conversation. Thank you all so much for tuning in to our first ever podcast episode, and we look forward to seeing you again next month.